First of all, was it the first one? These two kids kind of misdirected you.
Yes.
Tell me, let's find these kids, okay? Evil children. Do you want to tell us about that?
I was in a small group, a couple of guys that I didn't know, but we had been riding together for
Yeah.
an hour or so, and we hit a small town with a roundabout, and these I should have should have thought something's up here because the kids were holding the sign. The signs are stuck in the ground or on a
Yeah.
pole or something, and
Yeah.
they were holding it,
Exactly. They're not no
pointing
yeah,
this.
they're not normally attached to a child. Okay. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, and they were yelling and cheering. They were probably 10-year-old boys,
Yeah.
uh, and they were sending us this way, and we went down a screaming descent. And then I thought, this isn't right. And I thought, if they're in that roundabout when I get back,
That's funny.
but of course, they weren't. They were
Yeah.
probably hiding up in their house laughing
Yeah.
at us.
I just love the idea of like everyone in Brittany is so incredibly positive and supportive, and then there's these two delinquent kids out there. I'd
It
love to.
probably would have been me.
Today we have John Ende, who lives in Asheville, North Carolina. John has completed 6 PBPs, 4 of which were Adrian Hands. Funnily enough, John is also the founder of Society Adrian Hands, which he created in 2009. The society honors the memory of an American PBP rider who finished PBP in 2003 in a time of 88 hours and 55 minutes. To become a member, you need to finish with a time of between 88 hours and 55 minutes and the 90-hour cutoff. To date, 283 riders have become members, and that's from 28 countries worldwide. John, it's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for your time today.
Oh, Peter, thanks for doing this.
Cool. I see that we have competing PBP signage over our shoulders here. Okay. I think you wear it a lot better. Okay, that's good. All right. Let's start with the first question I always like to start with. Okay.
Sure.
What does completing PBP mean to you?
Well, to tell you the truth, that it's my least favorite part of the event, um,
Okay.
and that's not been the case with other cycling events. You're always trying to get to the finish line,
Yeah.
and probably in my first one, I did want to get to the finish line, but since that time, I want the event to continue. Um, I really enjoy being in the moment of PBP when all that stress from the planning melts away. You push that first pedal stroke down, and you're not thinking about work on Monday or some emails that you have to answer.
Yeah.
That you're just in the moment, and the finish means that that's over.
Okay.
So you relive it, you tell stories, you celebrate with your friends, but I really don't want to get to the finish.
That's good. It's a different philosophy. I like it. So you're actually sad at the end. Okay, I like that. Okay.
Yes.
You're crying for the wrong reason. Okay, good. Um, so maybe, okay, the first time, what's interesting to me, obviously you did it in a way like normal people, right? Just making sure you finished within the time.
Yes.
Um, do you remember that first time? What was the feeling? Was there a feeling of satisfaction?
You're using that term normal people loosely here.
I
We're
know.
talking about randonneuring.
I know.
Um, well, my first BBP, I didn't know what I was doing. It was my first 1200,
Yeah.
and I chose the 84-hour group. So, I mean, the Adrian Hands Society hadn't been created at that time.
Yeah.
Adrian was riding that event, and he finished in that 88:55. But I couldn't do that. I had to be under 84. I I thought, why? why start at night? That seems crazy. But let's just go to the following morning. And
Yeah,
I was younger and faster.
yeah.
Um,
John, I'm beginning to think you don't really fit in. You don't do well with authority. You just like to do everything differently. Is that correct?
uh, yeah, I never considered the army.
Okay. You know what? Let's take a step back. Okay. Let's tell me about your background in cycling. Why do you ride? That kind of thing.
I've been riding since I was a young kid. I rode to school. I started riding to school in kindergarten. I thought it was preferable to the bus.
Okay.
It's a sense of freedom to me. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
For a while, in I hope I didn't do
No,
something.
no. The sound's
Oh my
perfect. Thank
God.
you.
Okay. Um, for a while, I had very limited time, and I took up running,
Okay.
which is a horrendous activity.
Oh, completely. I thought you'd feel that way. Good. Okay. Now
And
we're
I,
aligned. Okay.
I never enjoyed it. You you
No one does.
you feel better afterwards that you did it, and you can get in shape that way. You can shed some pounds and feel better. But I didn't enjoy the running of that. The activity is, I always wanted that to be over. But cycling, uh, I never have to whip myself to go cycling.
Yeah.
Anytime I get a chance, I love the bike.
Yeah. Yeah. And John, you grew up in North Carolina, same Asheville area or not?
No, I actually grew up in New York, in Long Island.
Okay.
I moved to the Asheville area in the seventh grade,
Okay.
and at that time, that was a pretty long bus ride. I could no longer ride my bike to school, but I rode after school, and I would go, fishing by bike or run to the store by bike.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Cool. Cool. How did you originally hear about PBP and why did you decide to do it?
I was doing century rides. We had moved back to North Carolina. We left for a little while for training. Moved back to North Carolina. We were in the mountains, and there was a bed and breakfast called the Bicycle Inn. They had theme rooms. You could
Yeah.
stay in the Eddie Merckx room or the Poo Poo
Wow.
Polidor room.
That's funny.
There was a Peloton room with bunk beds.
Yeah.
Uh, and you would just, go out. This guy would lead you on country roads. Maybe you'd ride over Roan Mountain, and then you'd come back and talk about the ride and eat a big meal. And all the decor was cycling themed. And there was one little shadow box on the wall that had these medals and a brevet card and some stamps and a picture like many of us would have. Uh, and I asked about it and I said, "What's this?" And the guy, Michael Davis, who ran the place, said, "Oh, that's PBP."
Okay.
And I said, "What's PBP?" And he said, "Do you want a 6 month high?" And I
Okay.
said, "Yes."
You turned into a drug dealer or something? What happened?
And so he told me his
Yeah.
story, and how much he enjoyed it and the high that he rode,
Yeah.
according to him, for 6 months after finishing. And I thought, you know what? I might want to try that.
Makes
That was
sense.
in 2002.
Wow. Yeah.
And did a little checking, found a brevet series in Spartanburg, South Carolina, signed up 2003, rode the series, and then went to PBP for my first.
Amazing. Amazing. Just chasing the dragon, as I say, that 6 month
E-
high. Okay.
exactly.
Where do I sign up? Okay. Um, cool. And what was your strategy going into your first PBP? Like, how did you learn about how to train, how to approach the ride, etc.?
I had a very loose strategy. It was, it was the 84-hour group, and I wanted to get to near Ludiac for a sleep, then ride to Brest and back a little bit past Ludiac for another sleep, and then finish it off. And it basically held like that. But I did not know what I was doing. I was on an aluminum racing frame with look pedals and little battery lights. I mean, you know, it was kind of crazy, but
This is very
I
surprising.
finished it.
And tell me, did you ride with others? Do you remember?
I didn't go with anyone,
Okay.
but you know how, I mean, the whole thing about PBP is, there's five, six, 7,000 people there that are doing
Yeah.
what you're doing, and you're going to meet somebody.
Yeah.
So right away, I met these two guys in my group, and John DeLee and Greg Shield, and we didn't stay together the entire event, but we rode most of the event together and finished together.
Cool.
And I keep up with those guys. That was now more than 20 years ago.
Amazing. And was there any kind of low moments or doubt that you would actually complete your first one?
Absolutely.
Okay, really?
Yeah. Uh,
Okay,
I made I made all the mistakes.
nice. That's what
I
we're after. Okay, good. Good
Yeah.
content.
So
Yeah.
I started off too fast.
Okay.
I I decided to go with a liquid fuel that I had never used before.
That's great.
I got free water from some kids on the side of the road who I don't know where they had gotten that water, but I had GI upset pretty bad
Yeah.
and didn't know if I was going to be able to continue. I was having a very low point during that ride on the way back in.
Yeah.
Uh, we had just John and Greg had been waiting on me. We got to Villain, and I they wanted to eat something. I said, you know what? I'm just going to grab something from my pockets, and I'm going to go soft pedal because I'm holding you guys up.
Yeah.
And I did that. And as soon as they caught up to me, a triple was coming by. So
Wow.
three guys on a bike, and I don't know if you've ever ridden behind a triple,
I can
but
only imagine it's like a train, basically.
the
Yeah.
the draft is incredible. I
Yeah.
mean, the third guy was sitting bolt upright, and they had panniers on both sides. And I got into their slipstream, and
Yeah.
away I went into the night.
Yeah.
Uh, and John and Greg, who were much stronger than I was at the time, didn't catch that draft, and they got dropped behind. And I just sucked wheel from Villain to Mortain. It was a long way. The guys
Where?
on that,
Sorry. Go ahead.
the guys on that triple, Drew Buck was the captain. Nigel Winter was in the middle, and Steve Abraham was on the rear. They're PBP legends,
Okay.
and I was meeting them just on the ride. Uh, I keep up with Drew. He's been to my house. I've been to his house in England.
Yeah.
Um, it's a real bonding experience. That's kind of what sets it aside.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated by. We had a tandem couple on a few episodes ago. Like how the dynamic works when you ride up behind a tandem or a triple. Is it Are they like friendly, or is it they have their own thing going on, or you don't care, you're hanging on with them?
They could not have been more friendly.
Yeah.
They sensed that I really could use some help, and a couple of times were dropping me on an uphill where they just sort of coasted over the top and let me catch back on.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And do you remember how much sleep you got that first time, first PBP?
I took I took two sleep stops where I was about 5 hours off the bike,
Okay.
and then I those were close to Ludiac, um, and then I took one last kind of hour and a half nap at Mortain.
So cool. And at what point did you start feeling confident that I'm going to finish this thing?
Get when I saw the Eiffel Tower. No,
Okay.
um, probably leaving Mortain. Um, I was a little worried about that. You're sleep deprived. You know how you
Yeah,
feel at
definitely.
that point,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a screaming downhill off of that. It was cold in the morning, but I think once I got down from that, I thought we got this.
That's cool. And you traveled with your family, your young family, that first time. Is that correct?
I did, yeah.
And did they meet you along the way or not?
Yeah, I saw them twice, um, both times for the sleep stops around Ludiac.
Yeah, I've seen a photo of your kids and they were very young. What an experience that must have been for them, huh?
They love it.
Yeah,
They still love it.
definitely. Yeah,
They're all of my kids have finished college, um, but the youngest had graduated from college prior to 2023, and we were going to give her a trip to Europe, kind of as a gift for graduation.
yeah.
And she planned that around PBP because she wanted to be there one last time because maybe it was the last time the old man was going to be able to finish it.
Yeah, especially
Um,
with his laid back attitude, right? Okay.
so my wife and our youngest daughter came to this last one,
Oh, great.
but I don't think anyone was there in 15 or 19.
I get you. Okay.
Uh,
Cool. I sort of wrote down a few quotes from some of your that first ride report. First of all, was it the first one? These two kids kind of misdirected you.
yes.
Tell me, let's find these kids. Okay. Evil children. Do you want to tell us about that?
I was in a small group, a couple of guys that I didn't know, but we had been riding together for
Yeah.
an hour or so, and we hit a small town with a roundabout, and these I should have I should have thought something's up here because the kids were holding the sign. You know, the signs are stuck in the ground or on a
Yeah.
pole or something, and
Yeah.
they were holding it,
Exactly. They're not no.
pointing this.
Yeah. They're not normally attached to a child. Okay. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, and they were yelling and cheering. They were probably 10-year-old boys,
Yeah.
uh, and they were sending us this way, and we went down a screaming descent. And then I thought, this isn't right. And I thought, if they're in that roundabout when I get back there,
That's funny.
but of course, they weren't. They were
Yeah.
probably hiding up in their house laughing
Yeah.
at us.
I just love the idea of like everyone in Brittany is so incredibly positive and supportive, and then there's these two delinquent kids out there. I'd
It
love to.
probably would have been me.
That is funny. Cool. Do you remember then, like, just getting to the finish line? Like, what was that emotion like?
Oh, I, I had nothing left in the tank. You know, we were coming across those flats as you get into Paris where you're probably doing 20 miles an hour on the way out and you're lucky to be doing 10 on the way in. A group had formed behind us. I was riding with John and Greg
Yeah.
again, and I mean, we It was emotional, actually. I think all the PBPs at some point are emotional, or they are for me anyway.
Yeah.
Um, Sleep deprivation and just the sensory overload. I I I think I shed a tear on that first one at the finish line just because I'd never done that distance. You qualify for these things riding half of that distance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And
crazy.
I was worried when I went from the 300 to the 400. I was worried. When I went from the 4 to the 6, I thought, can I do a 200 after this?
Yeah.
Now you're going to do that 6 and turn around and do another one?
Yeah.
Well, turns out you can do it. But yeah, Peter, it was the one where I really wanted to get to the line.
Okay. We're going to talk about the other ones shortly, but I want to read a quote because you had a great quote on your ride report. It's a little bit long, okay? I have never done anything as hard as PBP. I will never do anything as hard as PBP. I'm just a regular guy. I shouldn't do anything harder if it even exists. I guess you could turn around and write it again like one group did once. Well, I won't be writing it consecutively in that sense, but I will be back in 4 years. It's just too special to miss. I believe it's a metaphor for life. There are constant ups and downs, and it is not easy, but the rewards are great. Nice writing, John.
I
Good. I like it.
I
You
I
agree?
agree
Well, you
with
wrote it.
well, I agree with everything except that I'd never do anything harder because I've done some things harder than PvP. But at the time, I didn't imagine that I would ever be doing anything as hard as
Sure.
PvP.
And then, John, it sounds like you knew even during the ride, your first ride, that you would be back.
Yeah, um, I don't think my wife was too happy about that
Okay.
realization.
She didn't
she,
review the, she didn't review this ride report and correct it for you.
I
No.
think she was kind of thinking it was a one and done kind of situation, but
Yeah.
it didn't turn out like that. Uh, you get beat up, you're tired. I'm sure there's times during the event where you're thinking, what am I doing? Why? This is insane. It's
Yeah.
crazy. But that all, that all kind of melts away,
Yeah.
when you see that final stamp and the medal hanging around your neck and talking to your friends and celebrating.
That's so true. And before we talk about your other PBPs, maybe just talk about the people of France and the supporters, that kind of thing. Because personally, that's what just blows me away completely. That's what makes it so special, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, it is amazing. You know, you when I did PBP that first time, I knew I'm never going to do another century ride. I
Okay.
mean, what what is the point? The the Instead of cars honking at you, people were holding traffic for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone is invested in the event.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what
Well,
you're
that's
doing.
you're using that term everyone a little bit. We have two people that perhaps weren't as invested in the event, right? Those kids.
Well, they were invested, but just not in a very helpful way. But when you're doing these other 1200s, you might go into a convenience store and people want to know, what are you doing? What are you riding to save America, or
Yeah.
are you just, riding around the block? At PBP, the whole town knows what's going on. The event is going on.
Yeah.
They've been working on hosting it. That they might be opening their garage. That their mom is down cooking to serve the riders. Dad's showing riders to their beds. Heck, kids are there volunteering, carrying our trays.
Yeah. Amazing.
It is
Amazing.
it is amazing.
So then, John, let's talk about your subsequent PBPs, and maybe it's a good time to talk about Adrian Hands. You want to just tell us about that?
Sure. Um, I in reading, well, I think Adrian's ride report from 2003 is one of the best I've read. It's definitely my favorite one to reread. Uh, and I loved his approach and all the things that went wrong and kind of his attitude to dealing with them.
Yeah.
Um, and I, I recalled a lot of people mentioning in rider. Rusa actually used to do a PBP write up special edition magazine. So it was just solid ride reports, a whole issue. And a lot of people mentioned the 90-hour start and the trail of red lights dotting the
Yeah.
hills. And I thought, I think I missed out on that. I'm gonna go 90 hours the next time. I wanna be in that mass start and get the volunteers when they're a little fresher. Um, so I learned that part from Adrian. Now, there still was not an Adrian Hands when I went back in 2007. Adrian, he's a North Carolina rider, so I've ridden with him here. The main guy that I was riding with, and I've done many 1200s with more than anyone else, Mike Dayton, was good friends with Adrian. They both lived around Raleigh, and so I started seeing Adrian more, and he had a odd thing going on with his hand. The muscles were atrophying, and
Yeah.
he was losing grip. And he decided it wasn't safe to ride an upright bike anymore, and he switched to a recumbent because he wanted to go back to PBP, and he qualified in 2007 on a recumbent and got back to France. 2007 was a very difficult event.
Okay.
Lots of rain. In we had rain at the start, rain through the first night
Mm.
into the next morning. It was awful. But he made it out to Brest and back to Ludiac, and then decided to abandon. There were intermediate closings at that time, and he was running out of time. But he got shortly after that he got his diagnosis of ALS,
Yeah.
and it it's a progressive disease. And I was talking with Mike, and we had done LEL in 2009. We spent a lot of time together on the event and afterwards.
Mm.
And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have a, a counterbalance society to the Charlie Miller Society, where we make it like, let's say, an Adrian Hands Society,
Okay.
to honor our buddy who is ill, and we'll take his time as the cutoff and say that you have to finish, 88:55 to 90 hours, and anybody that's slow enough to do that and
Yeah.
finish in time could join. And we announced that when Adrian was alive,
Oh, great.
and the first people that could apply were the riders after 2011. He died in 2011, but we started accepting members at that time, and there were a lot of retrospective members. Like I had a 90-hour from 2007 that I could apply to 2011, so I was in already. Of course, I
Yeah.
was making
You
the
know.
rules.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. For the
but
person who doesn't want to finish, I think you have four Adrian Hands. Did I see that? Do you have
I
four?
do. I messed up one and finished a little early,
Okay.
but I do have four.
So I told you the last time I went to PBP 2023, and I'm definitely of the belief I want to get maximum value out of PBP. And I probably got in around 88 hours, and I I went to the bar. I didn't finish officially. And I
Yeah,
saw all the other Adrian Hands people waiting for, that time.
yeah.
And I just got too nervous. I thought I'd fall asleep or something at the bar. I didn't want to, I wanted to make sure. So I just found it so stressful, which it shouldn't be, of course, but it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such
I
a it's a cool idea. I love it.
you your Peter, your mind is not really as sharp as it typically is in that situation,
Yeah.
and you're trying to calculate these times. I mean, write it down ahead of time.
Tattoo it or something to your
The-
hands, like
yeah.
memento or something. No, but that's exactly it. Like I was kind of, my brain would sort of do the math, but I was never 100% sure it was correct.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You're gonna have other chances.
That's true. I could imagine myself going beyond 90 hours and trying to explain to some French official that I
Yeah.
was trying to qualify for Adrian Hands.
I don't think they would pass you for
I
that.
don't think so either. I wouldn't either. Cool. So, John, you're going to tell me about 2007.
Yeah, 2007 was, I mentioned it was a very difficult event due to rain. But it got a little more difficult for me because I had a terrible pain on the way back in. We were just through Tintiniac, and I had never had a pain like this. It was in my side and in my abdomen. It was to the point where I used the word hospital. And the guy that I was riding with was like, "Oh my God, this guy's going to die on me."
Yeah.
Um, but I went to the hospital in Rennes by taxi cab, and I got an IV, I got narcotics, I got IV fluids. They did an X-ray, urine sample, took blood work. I had a kidney stone, and one of my kidneys was blocked. Um, but I took a nap, and nature has a way of working these things out. And actually, when I gave the urine sample, they gave me a big bowl to pee in, and a little black fleck hit the bottom of the bowl.
Wow.
And I thought, that's it. I had a stone. It's passed. I'm not feeling any pain. I haven't had anything in 2 hours. Uh, it's time to get back. Uh, so I, I, I was no longer a very urgent case. I was having no pain. I took my IV out and made my way to the checkout, paid, got a taxi back to the cafe we were at, and got my bike. Now, all told, I was 8 hours off the bike. And by the time I got to Fougères, they were closing the control, literally walking out with boxes, pulling the door, turning off the light. And but I was carrying my X-ray and all my hospital paperwork,
Yeah.
and they got interested in that. And I learned the word for kidney stone is calcule,
Okay.
and everyone wanted to see the X-ray. And one guy took my book and he wrote in the back a long note, but they wouldn't stamp it. And said, continue. I was feeling great, by the way, at this time.
Yeah.
And I had not seen another rider when I got to that point. So what I want you to imagine is you're at PBP and you're the last person on the road, and you start coming into people that are really suffering. I
Yeah.
mean, they're really they're falling asleep, moving at a very slow pace. And after I left Fougere, I started getting back into riders.
That's
One,
great.
two,
Yeah.
10. You know it, and they're zombies.
Yeah.
You've never seen anything like the back of Paris, Brest Paris. Um,
Yeah.
I reported an accident. Uh, um, I saw the broom wagon. It was like a scene from the Triplets of Belleville. These guys inside the van holding their knees and the bikes on the top. Um, and then when I got to Villain, I walked in. Each control at that time, there were intermediate control closings. So,
Yeah.
but when I walked in, I gave them my card,
Yeah.
and I was in time. I was back in time, but
Wow.
I was missing a stamp. So I went into a back room there where we examined the x-ray and the hospital paperwork. And then I got
Yeah.
another long note in my control card, and I continued on.
Amazing.
And now I was really getting into riders, like hundreds of riders.
Yeah.
Italians riding with their arms around each other, singing songs.
I
And
love it.
it,
The
it, it was
Italians,
just,
yeah.
it was
Yeah.
an amazing
Yeah.
time. I
Yeah.
was I was like Superman back there. I had a
Yeah.
couple bags of IV fluids, but yeah. So I finished in 90 hours. That was my first Adrian Hands, and I didn't even know it at the time.
Amazing. That's a great story. I think I might just bring a random X-ray for my next trip. Okay.
Just in
It's very powerful, isn't it? An X-ray.
Peter,
Okay.
that's tip number 4.
Okay. I'm actually going to add that. Bring in an X-ray. So tell me about, like, just in general, what has changed over the next 5 times? Like, what has, in terms of strategy, the way you approach it? Does it get easier? You tell me.
Uh, parts of it gets easier, like how quickly you might move through a control. You're obviously used to all your gear, unless you're switching things.
Yeah.
Um, I'm getting slower.
Okay.
How fast I can ride the bicycle, but I can make up for that by how quickly I can get through a control. We'll talk about this, but I'm gonna hit on it right now.
Okay.
I like to stop.
Okay.
The really fast guys will tell you that kills you,
Yeah.
but I'm not a really fast guy. I'm a really slow guy
Okay.
that can finish PBP, and that those stops help me. I think they would help anyone. It's just getting off the bike, moving your neck, taking your hands off the bars. Your feet aren't pushing on the pedals. You just get a little rest. Don't don't dilly dally with the stops. Don't prolong them, but don't be afraid to stop. So if I see a roadside stand with a kid, typically,
Yeah.
I want to stop and talk to them,
Yeah.
but I won't linger. But
Yeah.
I think it helps my body not feel so beat up.
Yeah. No, it makes sense, definitely. Has your approach to sleep changed over the years?
You want as much as you possibly can, but I am a really solid time off the bike and asleep with, I think, about 5 hours. Being off the bike 5 hours, and I hope that I'm going to sleep for 3, maybe 3.5 if I'm
Yeah.
efficient.
Yeah.
Um, if you've got your family there, I don't want to just like race in and run to bed. I want to hang with them for a little bit,
Yeah.
but I don't always have them there. But the one thing that I'd say has changed is I'm more apt to take a ditch nap, and I those are very rejuvenating. There's no sense. I've never fallen asleep riding my bike. I've seen it happen many times.
Yeah.
Um, but when I get to that stage where I'm feeling like a little wobble or you know, whoa, what was that? Um, I will pull over and I'll do a power nap for 15 minutes, set my alarm, and it's amazing how rejuvenating that is.
Agreed. And do you always tend to ride alone, or are you more likely to be part of a group now?
I'm more likely to be part of a group, but I'm not afraid to ride alone.
Okay. Yeah.
um, I even when I'm part of a group and I'm riding with somebody, probably like most people, we don't have to stay together the entire time. I might leave the control earlier, or you might leave the control earlier, or you
Yeah.
might want to stop here and I want to continue. You're not always in sync with your sinusoidal rhythms,
Yeah.
but then you come back together.
And is that an unspoken thing for you, or do you kind of say that to the group you're with? Hey, I'm on my own journey. I might leave earlier. I might sleep here.
I say, hey, you guys are really looking strong, but I'm gonna have to get some sleep. So if you want to
Yeah.
go on, go ahead.
Yeah.
Or my typical is I'm gonna soft pedal.
Nice.
If people are spending more time at the control than I want to spend, and then I I really do soft pedal. I just ride easily, and then they catch me up.
Cool. What about nutrition over the 6 times? Has anything changed for you, nutrition wise?
Yeah, I'm never going to use liquid nutrition again. That was a mistake I made on the first one.
Yeah.
You know, part of going to PBP is it's the people, the volunteers and stuff, but it's also that you can learn a lot. These people invented the sport. They hold the biggest event. They know what they're doing. Just pay attention.
Yeah.
And there's the food that they're serving at those controls really works for me. So I use real food, and I I like to sit down, you know, and as opposed to the baguette, which I do some in the pocket, but I'd prefer to go into the cafeteria and get a big tray of food and eat their offerings because it works.
Cool. So I assume you're going to do it again. Okay.
I
Uh,
am.
okay. And then what is how long do you think you can keep going? How many more times?
I don't know. I I don't have a set number that I'm going for. Uh, I'll assess each time that I do it. Like I felt that I had one more in me when I was doing this last one.
Okay.
Um, the last one went pretty well, so I enjoyed it. I didn't want to finish,
Yeah.
so it probably means that I'll go back again. When I get to the point that maybe I can't finish or it's not fun anymore or I feel like it's dangerous, then I'll pull the plug because there's there are other things that I like to do.
That's true. Yeah. What are those things, John?
Hiking,
Okay.
um,
Hiking. Yeah.
and I can do that with my wife. She doesn't cycle, and she rides a little bit, but not
Yeah.
not randonneuring. But uh, she really loves caminos.
Okay.
So we've done several, I don't know, four or five
That's
caminos.
cool. That's cool. Yeah. And there's
And
no time limits, which is nice.
there is no
Yeah.
time limit.
Yeah.
It has a rhythm uh, that is similar to randonneuring in that you really are in the moment. You're not worried about what's going on at home or in the news or at work. You're worried about, is there coffee in the next town, or
Yeah.
where are we going to sleep tonight,
Yeah.
or did I dry those socks out? Um, it's just it's a much slower pace, but it's very similar.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. All right. So, John, we are going to end with you giving us 3 tips that guarantee a finish for someone. Okay. They're going to come looking for you, right? If it doesn't work out, not me.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So you've done this 6 times. You don't really believe in the time limit thing. So tell us more. Tip number
Um,
one.
yeah, tip number one we've talked about a little bit, and I said stop frequently and efficiently. So don't take long breaks, but take frequent breaks. I usually stop between the controls at PBP, so I'm not just stopping at the controls. All those little stands, I bet I've stopped at every one of them. There are some amazing places on PBP,
Yeah.
and I don't want to miss them. They might have mole free or free crepes or
Yeah.
who
I
knows
like that.
what.
Yeah.
So that's number one, is stop frequently but be efficient. Um, two, the two is stick with what you know works.
Yep.
This is not the time to try out a new saddle. It's not the time to try out a new fuel. It's not the time to try out a new vest or new helmet. You're doing that series trying to become one with your machine and your equipment. Um, so stick with what you know. I made that mistake of trying a fuel in 2003. It almost was a game stopper for me. Uh, so, the way you learn these things is by, of course, making the mistake. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm here for, is to
Yeah.
make mistakes for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and then tip number 3 is learn a little French. You don't, you do not need to be fluent in French or be able to have a long conversation, but you need to, greet people, particularly the control workers. Bonjour, madame.
Yeah.
That is going to go a long way. These people have really invested their time and they're out there taking care of you. And for me, it just, it shows a little respect back to them. So those are my tips.
John, 3 excellent tips. Thank you. It was a real pleasure to meet you, and I hope to officially do Adrian Hands next time if I can get over my anxiety. Okay.
Uh, yeah, stick with, if you see us at the bar when you go back in, stick with us.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks again.
All right, Peter, appreciate it.